and I'm not idealistic about this. I know it's hard to get money together, but I mean, I'm interested to know how much do your short films cost? How much?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I had a really good experience with Southwest Screen, and I went through this pitching process, and I actually pitched 2 ideas. The kind of more fundable idea we might have seen on the screen before, hopefully like, a little bit more, slight with my own impression on it. And then I went for the kind of arty, something that maybe I really wanted to say, but I think at the time we went with my sort of safer idea purely because it would probably be easier to work with me, and it would slightly more commercial. And that is the problem. It's like if you want to make sort of how do you say it? Short film commercial. I'm trying to say is if you do pitch to Southwest Screen and the UK Film Council, there does sometimes tend to be a trend of what you are talking about and what do you want to say, and that's because they're where they're getting their funding from as well, I imagine. But it is difficult, and I would just use Shane Meadows and other people for an example to say actually he expressed his voice and he went out and did it by. Well, he started off doing it by himself with his own money and just making them for next to nothing. Answering your question about my films, they are arranged from 30 quid, made them in 2 days, got internet distribution and been constantly screened on the internet, to I can't actually remember the budget, digital short film, couple of grand, maybe nearer just over £5,000 short film, which I mean it's only just finished, but my more expensive ones haven't actually got that much screen time because they are slightly longer. You're talking about just under 10 minutes, whereas my really stupid, crazy, here's my voice, this is my 2 days work, have actually been picked up by certain internet companies because it was just out there. And so there is I think as a filmmaker you have to be aware it's great to get on that funding ladder and express your voice and work with producers and great DOPs and stuff, and the script development is really interesting with the likes of Southwest Screen, but at the same time it's that whole university thing. Just if you've got a camera or if you can borrow a camera, just keep making something, just give yourself like a day or something to make something, because you often find that you can express and you learn loads in that day, just giving yourself a little deadline instead of, I think my film went from October to July, that whole period to make a 6-minute film.
Yeah.
Which is quite draining, actually.
Yes.
To be honest.
It takes a certain amount of life out of it. I mean, Shane Meadows, for example, he's making films and he writes scripts, but there may be sort of, I don't know, 25-page or 30-page document, and he's not going through a whole script process of rewrite after rewrite. Obviously he's in a privileged position now because people are giving him funding to do what he wants, but he was doing that all along. He's never done 10 hours of Casualty or whatever. So, but obviously he's a particular personality, and that may not be the route you want to take. But I just want to sort of say that is an option, I think. And
with those 1-day things, 2-day things, going back to what David said, you do get a chance to work with actors. Just very, it's all these small experience builds up. I actually did theatre from really small to 18 or 19. I just went behind the camera instead, or off stage, and started to write stuff and direct. But I would just go back to David's point, is that those 1-2 days, really experimental, loose script, paragraph synopsis with 2 mates or 2 actors from the local theatre company can be really valuable experience, and that's how you become a better direct filmmaker, I'd say.
I think there's an interesting, I think David's point about directing theatre, and your point also, Jeff, about doing things that are relatively tight in terms of the shorts and commercials is a very, very valid experience. I think there is potentially a danger in doing longer pieces for television. I know in the 70s, Charles Sturridge, fresh out of Stonyhurst, landed a formidable gig doing Brideshead. 12 hours or so with Jeremy Irons and others, and we all thought, wow, lucky old Charlie. And it took a long, long time before I saw his name on any feature film credit after that, because the production companies didn't want somebody who could tell a story in 12 hours. They wanted somebody who could tell a story in 3 minutes, preferably, and build it to a feature length. So there is a danger in having that luxury of mini-series 6 hours of telling your yarn.
I think that sort of it is changing because of these these short schemes. Can you Nokia, tell a story in 30 seconds, depict, tell a story in 90 seconds, and they're really good, just kind of learning curves for a filmmaker. But actually, like one of my films, they actually get a lot of screen time. If it's on the internet or it's just before a feature at the watershed, people are now actually interested, and I don't know. Hopefully, this is how people become sort of promo and commercial directors, because they know they can tell a quick, sharp idea. So I'm hoping that will change, but I'm not quite there yet with that.
Can I ask Joanna a question, sort of with regard to that, about that kind of the difference that you found working in television and then to film, both from the sort of the creative side of of being a jobbing TV director and then kind of directing kind of your own feature, and also the pressures of the financial pressures that you kind of had within both of those sectors, where if you felt anything, was there a weight of you're carrying a lot more money in your feature?
Well, actually, the budgets of the television I did were much higher than my feature. It was really made for a very small amount of money. And but in television, when you're directing drama, you're essentially a director for hire. You don't feel the pressure of the money. You get different kinds of pressures of coverage you're shooting and actors you're casting. So the sort of creative things that there's an executive producer keeping an eye on all those things. And obviously you've got to shoot fast because you've got to sort of, the producer's got to keep within budget, but it wasn't I wasn't particularly aware of money while I was doing it in that sense, in a sort of day-to-day sense. But directing my own film from something I'd written was very, very different. And I think the fact of shooting it for so little money gave actually, paradoxically, gave me a lot of freedom. So I now believe that the sort of lower the budget, the more you can have time to do what you want, actually. I mean, there was one day we had a 7-week shoot, which is sort of incredible for a very low budget film. It's very long. Normally it would be sort of shooting 4 or 5 weeks. And there was one day we were shooting in the order of the story. So we started at the beginning of the story and we ended at the end. It was in chronological order. And there was one day where I felt I just needed a breathing space, so we didn't shoot for one day. But because we had such a tiny crew, it was like a documentary crew, really. There was sort of, one guy on sound, 2 on camera, no hair and makeup. It was just really reduced, and so you buy yourself a lot of freedom. Obviously, any money is difficult to raise, but this was very small, and luckily the producer managed to find a lot of different people just to put very small amounts of money in. And because they were like $2,000, at a time type of amounts, those people didn't have any say on how the film turned out. So, I mean, it was an extraordinary, and I'm not promising I'll be able to do it for my next film, but it was an extraordinary, wonderful experience, and to be able to really use our own instinct and not have to show cuts to executive producers afterwards. And I mean, I would show to friends because I don't believe that. I'm going to sort of know everything. You obviously want an outside view, but it was a very, very different process.
I really enjoy writing films. I really enjoy directing films. I really enjoy editing films, short films. I really enjoy it. And I've actually, like Jeff, I've just done a digital short, although it's not finished yet, with South West Screening Colony Shots. Then I sort of think, where do I go from here? I like all of those things. And I've actually sort of been applying for runners' jobs at post-production houses like Film 59, etc. Then I thought, as great it would be to get in to those, if I went down that ladder, would I ever get the opportunity to direct or write films? I'm more interested in TV, by the way, before I mention. But would I get the opportunity to do those other things, and vice versa? I would have thought maybe you would have more of an opportunity to edit your own stuff if you were directing and so forth, but I'm sort of really confused of what sort of path to go down at this point.
What do you think your real strength is? Are you an ideas-driven guy or a kind of process-driven guy? When you're writing, what's driving your writing?
Just the vision of, it's like just the idea, just the vision of how good it could turn out to be, and just. But at the same time, it's sort of, I don't know. I just